Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Surprise Jab Podcast. I'm your host, Zach Ruger, surprising you with new topics every single week and jabbing you with your daily dose of UFC. And we got plenty of surprises on today's episode, and we got a fun one today as we're going to be reviewing and recapping a lot of things that have all been good, a little bad here and there, I don't know, but a majority of good. First off, UFC London took place, and despite going 7-6 on predictions, I'm pretty happy with how it rounded out. But the final three fights I predicted correctly. We even correctly predicted Sean Brady getting a submission win. I mean, it just shows you how good we are at making UFC predictions. Also, on today's episode, we are going to be recapping rounds 1 and 2 of March Madness, seeing which teams are in the Sweet 16. So we'll be looking at all of that to round out today's episode. As well, we have 2 TV show reviews as their recent seasons just dropped, and they are absolutely amazing. That is Severance, and that is Invincible. 2 of my favorite shows, one of which I like a bit more than the other. But other than that, guys, busy week ahead for Zachary. A lot of meetings, a lot of presentations. You know, your marketing club president stays on top of things. Still don't have something for the summer in terms of an internship or a job, but I have a good feeling that God is going to deliver me right where I need to be. So whoever I go with, whoever I end up with is where I'm meant to be. And right now, if you're listening to this, you're meant to be listening to my voice right now, if that's how that works out. But without a doubt, let's get on into things. First off, I wanted to do some new UFC fights for everyone, but there have been no UFC fights. Dana White has been not blessing us with a new UFC fight. So for now, we're going to dive into our review with our first show in Severance. That's right, Severance Season 2 has officially concluded, and all 10 episodes this season are out. And I kind of just want to give my thoughts on every episode because, you know, it was a very interesting season. Very interesting season. Of course, if no one knows, Severance, the show directed by Ben Stiller, stars Adam Scott, I believe his name is. He stars as this guy named Mark. You also have, trying to think, Zach Cherry. He was in the Fallout series. You'd probably recognize him from that. Britt Lauer plays Helly. She's one of the main characters. Seth Milchek actually is played by Tramel Tamil, and he is absolutely amazing. He had his breakout in this show. And then you also have, I'm trying to think, Christopher Walken's in this, John Turturro. You get a lot of interesting characters in this. But Severance, the whole premise of the show is there are these people that work at this company named Lumen. They undergo this procedure called severance, which is basically when they're at work, they're a different person than when they are outside of work. That's as simple as it is. We've already reviewed that part of Severance, but I'm here to review Season 2. So Season 2, you know, it started off, and it was a big return, because Season 1 ended with an absolute bang. And by the way, I came onto it new. Like, I started watching this 5 episodes into Season 2, so I've been caught up the last month. This took almost 3 years. It might have even taken 3 years for them to release Season 2, which is utterly insane, if you ask me. That is utterly insane. So I'm very happy it came out. I didn't have to deal with the long transfer of time, but unfortunately other people did, taking 3 years for this to come out. But Season 2 kicked off, and Mark, you know, he's back, and after the whole, you know, issue with, what's his face? I'm trying to think, how did Season 1 end? Season 1 ended, and they were all, like, they severed themselves outside of work, and they basically, Mark reawakened, he was on the severed floor in a panic, and the opening scene, actually, from that season, it took, like, I think a month, or like 3 months to shoot. It was pretty crazy. And soon, you know, we're all going through everything, and the whole team is all of a sudden back together. And it doesn't solve too much, but it kind of gets back going. And I thought, you know, episode 1 really brought everything back together. Episode 2 kind of came in. They're introducing more characters. You know, obviously Gemma is still alive. Helena, you know, they're in Mark. They're going about stuff, trying to finish the Cold Harbor file and what that is. Because that was the whole build-up all season. What is this Cold Harbor file? What happens when Cold Harbor is completed? And he was kind of going about that. And then, you know, you're getting into episode 3, and they're still trying to explore and find stuff out. But then you're getting into episode 4, and we just reach this kind of dull point of the show. It's like very weird, you know. Episode 4, they're like going through this simulation where they're not even in the office, but they're their severed selves. And it's actually where you find out that Helly, the innie version of Helena, who we all learned is the daughter of Egan, who's like the head of Lumen, she's actually been going into her normal form down there, and she has sex with Mark, and that leads to a whole thing, and then eventually Milchek is forced to fire Irving, and Irving's firing is a big turning point of the season. Episode 5, it's the halfway point. It's just kind of average. It's just kind of average. It's not too bad of an episode, but, it's still build up. You're getting into episode 6, and, it's okay. It's okay. It's more just weird episodes. It's like a lot of build up. A lot of buildup. That's what I'll say. And then, episode 7, it's a flashback episode, which is just really dull. And then episode 8, it is all about Miss Cobell or Harmony Cobell, whatever you want to call her, and like her backstory or her, like, not even a backstory, it's just like about her life. And it is so bad. It is so bad. Episode 8 really lost me. Episode 9 kind of redeemed itself, and then what I saw most recently, which is what my kind of review is about, which is episode 10 called Cold Harbor. If no one's seen it, go check it out. It's probably about as good as the start of the season. I will say it's better than, it probably is the best episode of season 2, but it's just, the ending's shocking. The ending is shocking. It makes you think, it makes you angry, it brings out emotion, which is why I think it's good. So I do think Severance Season 1 is better than Season 2, but if I'm giving Severance Season 1 like a 8.3 out of 10, I'm giving this a 7.3 out of 10. So it's not too far behind, but I just don't think it really captured as much shock value as Season 1 did, especially the finale. You kind of start out episode 10, and Mark, Adam Scott's character, is basically having a conversation with himself, but it's like his innies talking through a camera to his outie, and vice versa, and it's going back and forth, and eventually, the whole thing is Mark's outie version convinces his innie that if you don't complete Cold Harbor, Gemma will die. Finally, Mark's innie storms off, but then he kind of realizes that he has to sacrifice himself and his relationship with Helly, obviously the innie version of Helena, to complete this file and save Gemma. And it's kind of weird. It's kind of like this personality disorder. It's like the same person, but two different people. Reminds me of the movie Split, if anyone has seen that. That's what it kind of reminds me of. So basically, Mark goes back to the severed floor. He completes Cold Harbor. And what is Cold Harbor? You may ask, well, the big reveal about what Cold Harbor is that it's just unlocking different personalities for Gemma. Honestly, and I hope they reveal more, but that is the main gist I got, is that the Cold Harbor file unlocked the final, if I believe correctly, 25th different personality of Gemma, which is Mark's wife, who he thought was dead, but turned to be alive and is at Lumen. And it was very underwhelming. And I was like, what? I wasn't even almost like let down. I was almost more confused. And then all of a sudden, like, he completes Cold Harbor and there's this big celebration, and Milacek, obviously the black guy that like is the floor manager or whatever, leads out a whole marching band and they're celebrating this. And I'm watching this and I'm like, am I on acid? Did I smoke a bunch of weed unknowingly? Am I absolutely hammered out of my mind on psychedelics right now? What am I watching? Okay. And then in the Cold Harbor room, Gemma is then tasked with disassembling a crib, which is very weird. And then you have James Egan watching and Dr. Mauer's watching. But then eventually, the whole thing with the goats. They're talking about the goats all season long. Some about how Drummond, who's like the big guy that is like one of the henchmen, he's not even the henchman, he's like on the board. He summons Lorne, who's the one girl. She's from, oh my gosh, Game of Thrones. She is the knight. Oh my gosh, I can't. Brienne of Tarth, her character in this. She's like this, I don't even know, a caretaker. And basically he summons her to sacrifice a goat, which is very weird, symbolic, symbolizes, sacrificing a goat. It's almost giving me biblical vibes. But then Mark is basically breaking out. And actually, as he tries to kill Mark accidentally kills him, which is pretty satisfying, I can't lie. And then as they go out, they're getting to the floor, Mark finds Gemma, and they go to escape. They escape to the severed floor, and Gemma knows him, and Mark, and they have this great reunion, and they hug, and they kiss, and it's super emotional. It's such a feel-good moment. You're like, yes, they're together. And then, as Mark guides Gemma through the exit door, he sends her through first, and then he turns around, and Helly's there. And Helly can see him, and there's this weird, I can't even put my finger on what this ending is. Is Helly actually Helena? Is Mark just Mark's any version just completely taking control of him? But it was all out chaos, and Gemma is then locked out of the severance floor. But Mark, in his version, returns to go with Helly, and the season ends with them running off together, and it stops on a still of them as the alarms are blaring. It's like code red emergency, and it's just Helly and Mark running off together, and it was so perplexing. So perplexing. I had no words for what I was even seeing. It was just ridiculous. It was ridiculous. And I wouldn't be too mad with it. Obviously, I can't say it's like awful. I gave it a 7.3 out of 10 for the season. This episode, obviously, probably the best of the season. But it's more so like knowing that I have to wait at least 2 years because Ben Stiller says, oh, it hopefully shouldn't take 3 years. That means it's not going to take 1. It's not going to take 3. In the middle, you can go 2. Okay? And it's just kind of, I have to wait this long. I'm going to forget about everything. It just kind of is annoying. Kind of is annoying, but Severance Season 2, very fascinating, very interesting. I don't even know what to make of it. All right. I'm actually trying to think where the studio is. They film at an actual lab, which is pretty fascinating. I wonder if the actual lab is as complex as this. But Ben Stiller, he's the primary director, one of the executive producers. He has done an interesting job creating the characters. It's very fascinating. Very fascinating. I'm gonna just leave it there. Severance Season 2, go check it out. It is worth a watch. I'm very interested for the perspective of someone who can watch all 10 episodes consecutively than someone who watched one week by week, just to kind of get your perspective on if it's better or not, because I kind of feel that when you're able to watch episodes back to back to back, it's usually better than when you have to wait 1 week for one of them. But you let me know. Severance Season 2, very interesting. I'll tell you something else that was way more interesting. You could even say it was Invincible. That's right, Invincible Season 3 came out. And guys, I mean, I can rave about this as much as I want to. It is so good. It is so good. It is utterly just fantastic. How they're doing Invincible is phenomenal. And the fact we're going to get like 3 to 4 more seasons is just great to hear. But 8 more episodes of Season 3. The finale came out, and if you didn't know, the finale is currently tied with a Breaking Bad episode for the highest rated IMDb TV episode of all time. And yes, it is that good. It deserves all the praise. It is not overrated. But Season 3, picking right back up. I mean, honestly, if I'd have told you that Season 2, I finished it in April, and then I'm already back here in February, March watching Season 3, it kind of flew by. Good news, Season 4 is coming in 2026, so it looks like it's going to be a season every year, which I won't lie, is very refreshing. I would prefer if it was we could get a season in January, season in December type of vibe. I know that's not how it would work, but I'm happy with what we have for this. So Season 3 kicks off, and obviously this is 3 months after Mark absolutely brutalized Angstrom Levy, and he's obviously back under Cecil's supervision. They're testing him with a bunch of things. They're just trying to basically turn him into the superior Mark that he is meant to be. And one thing I love about Invincible Season 3 and about Invincible in general, there's so many subplots, and some they don't even touch on until later, but they always keep coming back in. I mean, obviously the level of detail they put into this is phenomenal. Absolutely love it. You open up Season 3, you get them fighting people, but the one new thing you have this year is that Mark's younger brother, oh my gosh, what's his name? Mark and, oh my goodness, this is really hurting my brain. I just watched this. Mark and Oliver. Of course, no Omni-Man's son with the, if you want to call it, bug people, which is very weird. You gotta watch this show. If you don't know what I'm talking about, skip over this portion of the podcast, but basically, Oliver gets his powers, and then he wants to help Mark out all the time. And this is eventually, and they're just getting right into it, where Mark actually starts to confess his feelings for Eve. And it's really one of those moments forever. It's just like, oh, this is long overdue. This is our Pam and Jim for any Invincible fans. This is like Pam and Jim, Mark and Eve getting together. And, you know, as they're going about things, you open up the season where you have Doc Seismic, and he captures every hero, and then you have this giant fight scene, and Darkwing returns for the first time since I believe it was Season 2. I want to say it might have been Season 1. I can't recall. But pretty good opening episode. And then they always do like this, roll a couple credits. They do another scene, and then it shows that Alan and Nolan as in Omni-Man, are in prison bonding while the Viltrumites begin to test on Alan to determine the source of his newfound strength. And you're just like, oh my gosh, we are so back. Getting into episode 2. Cecil, he's working with criminals, rehabilitating them. Mark is fighting a bunch of people. Everything's going well, okay? And then you get the return of other characters, and basically, you kind of get this thing where this is almost like a flashback for Cecil, and you're showing his background and how he came to be who he is meant to be. And it's very interesting then to know his perspective of things, because you kind of open this episode and you don't know like what's going on. It's just one of those weird things where they open with another subplot, and then you realize it's the background for Cecil. And I really like this episode because, you know, they kind of do similar things on other shows where they do background episodes and they don't work. For this one, it did work because they were able to tie in other things. Moving into episode 3, which I love that they dropped the first 3 episodes right off the bat. Mark receives a new suit. Oliver gets his new suit and names himself Kid Omni-Man, which is just utterly hilarious. Mark advises against it, but it is what it is. You start dealing with them. You then go into this thing where you have another plot with Titan. He was kind of like when they had the Battle Beast thing, with the guy with the robotic head. They start doing all stuff like that. Mark and Oliver, they're all going about stuff. You get this crazy scene where Oliver absolutely kills the Mauler twins, and it's so gory and bloody. And you're like, oh my gosh, Oliver's supposed to be like 8 years old right now, and he's doing this. It's wild. Going through the season, you then get to see Mark noticing a floating orb to end the episode, and they do a little post-credit scene. You learn that Angstrom Levy is somehow still alive. Dude, they never kill anyone in Invincible. Gonna be honest, and whenever you see someone die in Invincible, they're never really dead. I've just gotten that assumption. Following the first 3, this is where you got into your episode every week. Now, I didn't want to start watching until all 8 were out, just because I've been so busy, so I was blessed to be able to watch all 8 of these back to back to back over like the last week or so. But episode 4, Mark is beginning asking Rudy about analyzing the drone. He determines it's from Earth, but working with Cecil and stuff. And then Mark and Cecil start to get into this confrontation, and they start to have beef through the first 2 to 3 episodes of the season. And Mark is really just showing his anger and stuff. You then get this interesting thing where Mark goes to a different dimension and deals with the Immortals at Tyrannical King. And the one key theme for this season, where you see the breaking point at the end of the season, is Mark is really trying everything in his power not to kill people. He does not believe in killing. He does not believe in it. He always believes there's an alternative. And this is one of those key episodes where you start to see him dealing with that. And Mark, he's starting to talk to Eve here with things. And then we actually get this half of the episode. The other half of the episode is this awesome fight scene where Nolan is about to be executed, and Alan finally breaks free. Alan, the alien voiced by Seth Rogen, liberates the fellow inmates, including Battle Beast, and they all take on the Viltrumites, and it's utterly awesome. And then you see Alan and Omni-Man teaming together, just taking out Viltrumites, and Nolan reveals that the Viltrumite Empire now consists of fewer than 50 pure-blooded members, which is basically meaning the Viltrumite Empire is pretty open to being attacked. Now, I can't lie, this is honestly the last time you see Omni-Man and Alan. So this is one of the doozies, this is such an overhanging plot. This is the big story here. The big picture. Every season's going to have subplots. The big overhanging picture, almost like Thanos was the big picture for the longest time, is that the Viltrumite Empire versus Mark, Omni-Man, and Alan and their team that they assemble. It's going to be the big final battle in season 10 or something. But that's the overhanging arc there, and this is the last time you get anything with it. Now, I love Alan, I love Omni-Man. It's a shame we didn't get more of them. We get into episode 5. Mark suggests that he and Eve get their own apartment, which is very good. And then, they start offering their services to a prison. You get Debbie talking with Oliver, finding out that he has friends. And then you get this crazy thing where Multi-Paul escapes with Titan's henchman. Machine Head, that's robotic guy, he's getting back with everything. And it's just a whole episode right there, where it's basically that whole plot line happening with the almost street level criminals or whatever, but there's big bad guys. I don't know, it was okay, but I won't lie, kind of a filler episode. But even the filler episodes on Invincible are 9 out of 10 episodes. Episode 6, this is where you can kind of sense we're reaching the end of the season, and this is where we get into probably one of the greatest 3-episode stretches. 7 and 8 are the greatest 2-episode stretches I think I've ever watched in TV history, and I just want to say Robert Kirkman, who is the creator of Invincible, was given full directorial abilities for the final 2 episodes, and it just shows. This is what you correctly do with a show, is when you let the guy who created it actually let things play out. That's what I love about Invincible. But episode 6, having witnessed his sister and niece's deaths during Mark and Nolan's fight in Chicago, this scientist who works at the same facility that, what's his name, Cecil and, oh my gosh, who's Cecil's little worker buddy? Can't remember his name, but Scott Duvall's is the villain's name, and he's what's he even called? He's called Electro Man or something, I don't know, Shockwave or something, But there's this whole thing where, he lost his niece and stuff, and, he's trying, Powerplex is his name. He tries to lure out Mark. He tries to get after Mark. It's not working. Eventually, Mark keeps trying to talk Scott down, and Scott uses all of his powers, and in this horrific thing, Invincible just leaves you shocked all the time. He scorches his wife and son to death, his infant son. It's crazy. They then take Scott into GDA custody. He vows revenge on Mark, and you end the episode with Angstrom Levy gathering multiple versions of Mark's multiversal variants. And you open up episode 7, and the first thing that pops up is Day 1. And you're like, Day 1, what's that? And episode 7 is Angstrom Levi, who was the guy we all thought died at the end of episode 2. Mind you, no one dies in Invincible, sending out invincible variants along with other Viltrumites to take over the world and cause chaos. And it is utterly insane, and I loved every minute of it. It's crazy. Eve becomes incapacitated for being injured. Rex ends up sacrificing himself to save Monster Girl, Rudy, and Bulletproof, which I actually think Rex is dead, sadly. It's super sad. He actually had an emotional death. Darkwing is presumed dead to be for a time. Almost everyone is wounded. The surviving Invincibles who haven't been killed. They end up turning on Angstrom, and he's able to trap them on a desolate Earth before he battles Mark. Mark is able to overpower him, nearly kills Angstrom, but the battle scenes are just crazy, and the destruction, and just seeing how many evil versions there are of Invincible, and knowing that the one good version of Invincible is the one we see in the show. Crazy to see. Angstrom then orders the cybernetic surgeons to heal him after he escapes yet again. He just escapes every single freaking time, but they refuse to, demanding that they submit to his will, and basically you're going to be getting more of Angstrom Levi in the future. It's utterly ridiculous, and I think there's probably even going to be a scene where someone gets teleported to the desolate Earth where all the Invincible variants are, and they have to fight them. I don't know, but this episode was utterly crazy, and you just see Mark dealing with having to fight different versions of himself. After the attack, the episode ends with a Viltrumite arriving, voiced by the great Jeffrey Dean Morgan. Oh my gosh, named Conquest, and he arrives to basically take over Earth because Mark was not able to do so. He's disappointed by his lack of progress. The episode ends with those two going directly at each other, and you could episode 7 ends and you're literally just like, I can't freaking wait to watch more. I gotta see what happens. It was so good, and there's no way they can top it. And then you get into episode 8. And episode 8 is just one of those episodes where it makes you remember why you love the show. It makes you remember why Invincible is so good, and it solidifies season 3 as yet another fantastic episode. Now, here's the tricky thing. I don't think it's better than season 8 season 1 episode 8, like the finale of season 1. I honestly think it's equal. But I do think the shock value of Omni-Man, like basically killing Mark almost, I think that is going to be a bit more than this. But just for episode overall, just the entire episode as a whole, 9.9 out of 10. On the IMDb scale, it's just phenomenal. Mark and Conquest engage in combat, which basically destroys the entire world. It is utterly crazy. And you have Eve and Oliver trying to intervene, and Oliver almost dies, and Eve, you think, actually dies. And basically, Eve is able to, we learn this from the comics, is that she's able to rebuild her mental blocks, is able to reconstruct her body to finally send one more blast at Conquest before he's able to kill Mark. And then you get the moment, like Invincible rarely loses control, but when he sees his girl going down, and I can feel that, if I'm Invincible and Lexi's going down and Conquest is coming at me, and I thought he killed my girl, I'm going to A-town on that boy. Oh my goodness. And it is utterly insane. He shatters his wrist, breaking Conquest's metallic arm, and then as Conquest is basically going to choke him, Mark reverses it, gets on top, and with both of his wrists broken, he smashes his face into Conquest so many times over and over. It looked like mashed potatoes. His brain matter looked like mashed potatoes, and Conquest dies. And then my least favorite part of this episode is the fact that Cecil is able to regain his body, and basically Conquest is still alive. It makes no sense how everyone is always alive in this, but their entire battle scene was utterly amazing. 10 out of 10. 10 out of 10 fight scene. The editing was on point. You then go, you're at Rex's funeral. Rudy, the robot, he reveals that he's going to change his name to Rex to honor him. The world rebuilds, and then you find out that Livingston, but remember the one guy from Mars who basically was able to take over the alien's body, and there's like those little squid like type of worm things taking over. We find out they're still alive, and they're like under a city. You find a group of aliens finding Battle Beast, so Battle Beast is still alive. You find the technicians beginning to use angstrom to claim a new world, which I don't even want to know what's going to go on there. And then Cecil reveals to Donald that's what he is, that he has captured a comatose conquest and has placed him in an underground prison, intending to interrogate him about the Viltrumite Empire. But just before that, Mark had told him, make sure his body is burned, don't leave it. You then kind of end with the character switch that we've been waiting for, where Mark tells Oliver that he was right to kill all the people throughout the whole show when he was hesitating, and he promises that anyone who threatens his family ever again, he will kill. So in Season 4, obviously we're going to get more big bad villains coming in. I think you're going to see a less restrained Mark, and I think he's going to get to a point similar to where Omni-Man was in Season 1, where eventually he has to decide to withhold his strength to be the better person. You then get the post-credit scene, which, it was very underwhelming. I was hoping we'd see Omni-Man and Alan, but Darkblood, who I believe was the detective from, Season 1, he meets with some demon overlord, and he wants to reinstate himself as the ruler of Hell, and he wants to exploit a powerful being on Earth, most likely Invincible, and it was kind of like, oh, that's what we're going to be left with before we wait another year for another season? Okay, fine with me, but it was obviously whatever. But as we look at the timeline, if Season 2 came out in April, March of last year, and we get February to March for Season 3, I think January you can expect Season 4. Good to be honest, guys. I think we get a Season 4 in January to February. I'm pretty optimistic about it. I think we're only going to have to wait 8 months until the next Invincible, which is a long time, but this season was so amazing. Just how they string this whole show together is so impressive to me. It is so impressive, and the fact that we're just going to be getting season after season after season, it's incredible. And I do just want to shout out how amazing this cast is. Stephen Yeun as Mark Grayson, amazing. J.K. Simmons as Omni-Man, amazing. You get Mark Hamill, Seth Rogen, Jillian Jacobs. You get Walton Goggins is in this. Love Walton Goggins. Jason Mantzoukas. You have Chris Diamantopoulos. You have what's his face? Who are some of these other people? I don't know, a bunch of names that you would probably recognize. Ooh, Aaron Paul. Aaron Paul's going to be coming on for the next season. Interesting. Simu Lee is coming on for the next season. Ooh, Jonathan Banks. Ooh, you recognize him. Kate Mara, I recognize her face. Zolo. Ooh, we're getting Miguel Diaz from Cobra Kai. He's going to voice someone. Who else? Doug Bradley. Do I know who that is? No. Kristen Cudberry. I don't know who these are. But, Bryan Cranston was offered multiple roles, but is currently turning them all down still. So hopefully you get a little Bryan Cranston at some point. But Invincible, Season 3 gets a 10 out of 10. Invincible overall is a 10 out of 10, dude. It is one of my favorite shows of all time. And it's so rewatchable. It's so rewatchable, and I'm so happy Mark is with Eve now, and Invincible's going to be taken over. Guys, go watch Invincible. It's on Amazon Prime, and Amazon Prime is just 3 heaters. Obviously, if you get Amazon Prime, you can watch The Boys, you can watch Reacher, and you can watch Invincible, and you'll be fully satisfied. I actually have to watch Season 3 of Reacher. All 7 of the 8 episodes are out, and I believe Episode 8, the finale, comes out this weekend, so I'll have to check that out, but go check out Invincible. It is worth a watch. And I'll tell you what else was maybe worth a watch, and it was UFC London. Now, UFC London, I don't want to say it was a letdown. It really wasn't a letdown, but to say it was a good card feels kind of not fitting. This was a very mixed card. There was some good, there was some bad, but I do think it ended on a positive note with a new contender emerging and us actually getting a finish. Thank goodness we got a finish. These 5-round boring decisions have been killing me, but let's get into it. Let's review the whole card, and we'll do that, and then we'll look at the March Madness to round out today's episode. So, first off, we had a prelim matchup between Kyle Fernandez and Guram Kudaladzej, and this one, such a dud. Such a dud, and it was so weird to see Guram Kudaladzej just looking a shell of himself. This is a guy who had one of the closest, most intense, technical, close matchups with Mateusz Gamrot in 2020. 5 years later, this dude is almost deprogressed in his skill level. He was dropped in round 2 and 3, outstruck 79-29 significantly, taken down twice, and mind you, Hamza Chimaev, Ia Topura, and Alexander Topura all in the corner of Guram Kuladze, and he loses all 3 rounds. Embarrassing. In fact, 7 significant strikes landed in round 1, 2 landed in round 2, and 13 in round 3. Atrocious work from Guram Kuladze in this one. And Guram, he's now sitting at 2-3 in the UFC, 1-3 in his last 4. I think they might cut him. Obviously, I'd go to PFL, I'd go to the GFL. Guram doesn't have much left to prove here. Now, as for Cal Fernandez, 2-fight winning streak, 2-1 in the UFC. How about a round 1 finish and now a win over Guram Kuladze? He's in pretty good for the men's lightweight division. I can't lie. I think he has some interesting matchups ahead of him. I think you can actually matchmake him with someone we're going to mention later on in the prelims, but good stuff for Cal. Can't even hate on him. I did not see the Guram Kuladze loss coming. I honestly was very surprised by that, but got to give props to Cal. You know, if Guram wasn't going to show up and you showed up, you got to do what you got to do. After that, bantamweight action between Nathan Fletcher and Calvin Lorraine. I heard this was a robbery. I mean, I wasn't too bad because I picked the Don, Calvin Lorraine, but totals from the fight, 59 significant strikes to 30 in favor of Nathan Fletcher, 114 total strikes to 65 in favor of Nathan Fletcher, 6 of 12 on takedowns for 6 minutes control time in favor of Calvin Lorraine. Nathan, 1 of 7, he gets 4 minutes and 14 seconds, so pretty competitive matchup here. I think everyone viewed this one as Calvin won round 1, Nathan won round 2, who won round 3, and they gave grappling compared to striking for Calvin in round number 3. But like I said, 3-round decision, split decision, not fight of the night. It was okay. It was okay. You know, Calvin Lorraine is going to sit at 2-2 in the UFC, back in the win column. Good for him. As for Nathan Fletcher, this snaps his 7-fight winning streak, sadly. So he'll be 1-1 in the UFC. These two will be back for bantamweight action matchups, but this was just technical. I had Calvin winning. He won. It was decent. But next up, we got the first highlight of the evening, our first performance bonus of the evening, as Shauna Bannon beats Pooja Tomar. And guys, I'm going to be honest. This is my comeback of the year currently. This is my comeback of the year award currently. Shauna Bannon somehow coming back against Pooja Tomar. I have no idea how she did it. So round 1, Shauna outstrikes her 36-23. Pretty competitive. Pretty back and forth. Shauna outstruck her. Pooja, they were giving her some more credit for. It was pretty even. Round 2 gets going. Right off the bat. You can tell there's a bit more intensity. Pooja hits Shannon with a head kick. Down she goes, landing follow-up punches. We all thought the ref was going to stop it. Shauna Bannon survives, is able to lock in an armbar, and submits Pooja Tomar. It was crazy. I want you all to understand. Hit with a head kick. Follow-up punches are landing right on the chin. I mean, her head's bouncing off the canvas. Ref should have stopped it, probably. She survives, locks in an armbar. Nothing but props to her. An extra $50K performance bonus. Beautiful to see Shauna Bannon make it 2 straight. Welcome to the UFC officially. I mean, come on. This is her incoming party. I mean, not the 2 boring decisions she had before this. Not performances like this. Showing how she can come back. Amazing to see. As for Pooja, her 5-fight win streak is snapped, unfortunately. But Shauna Bannon, what can you say? Great win for Shauna Bannon, if I'm not mistaken. I think that was her first career win by submission. I believe it was. Yeah, her 3rd career finish. Wow, long overdue. Jesus, my goodness. Good work for Shauna Bannon. And as for the women's strawweight division, big performance like that, I mean, you can probably get rewarded. You know, there's actually a matchup coming up between the number 14th ranked, number 15th ranked Luia Pinheiro and Tisha Pennington. How about the loser of that for Shauna Bannon? Maybe if you do it in Ireland or something. They need to do an Ireland card. Honestly, I think they should do it. This was pretty good. Following what was next, not very good. Christian Leroy Duncan and Andre Puliev. Similar to Guram and Cal Fernandez, Andre Puliev just didn't show up. Didn't even show up. Landed 4 significant strikes in round 1, 2 in round 3. I mean, he did nothing the entire fight. Christian Leroy Duncan outstrikes him 73-18 significantly, 116-36 total. All right, that's all that happened. And Christian Leroy Duncan, good win for him, back in the win category, but just nothing for Andre Puliev. I mean, 9-3 now, and honestly, 0 appeal. Zero appeal in the men's middleweight division. You could keep him, you could send him. I don't know. He didn't do anything the whole fight. And honestly, I saw kind of a hesitant Christian Duncan until the final 10 seconds when he was just teeing off. I mean, but he did nothing the entire fight, CLD, he's good, he's talented. I think him versus Shara Magomedov would be a great fight, so you could do that perhaps. But other than that, didn't really miss much in this one, gonna be honest. Following what was next, though, heavyweight action as Marcin Tybura took on Mick Parkin, and I knew Marcin Tybura would be too much for Mick Parkin. Lo and behold, we have another undefeated fighter losing their zero. Marcin Tybura wins unanimous decision, 29-28 across the board over Mick Parkin, the undefeated Britain man. 61-7 strikes to 60 in favor of Marcin Tybura. Both men land one takedown, and this was as simple as Marcin won round 1, Mick won round 2, Marcin took round 3. As simple as that. Kind of came down to what happened in round 1, and Marcin Tybura kind of looked a bit better in that. So, good stuff for Tybura. Mick Parkin almost finished him in round 2. He had so much top control time. I think everyone kind of agreed Mick Parkin expended just too much energy, kind of in top control, oddly, and that's why he lost the fight. So, Marcin Tybura, don't blink, 2 straight wins over prospects, make him 3-1 in his last 4, only losses to Sergey Spivak. I mean, good stuff. Good stuff for him. For Mick Parkin, he's now sitting at, 10-1? If I'm not, I'm 10-1. It's, you just need to understand you're not at that level yet. He needs to cut some weight, and he's not going to be much of a guy. But you know what? I'm not trying to hate on Mick Parkin. He's got other options, He could fight the winner of Kedi Nchukwu and Martin Buday. They got a fight coming up. He could fight Talasan Teixeira. There's some options for him. As for Marcin Tybura, kind of at a weird point here. I think him and Sergey Pavlovich would be good. Because Tom Aspinall's fighting John Jones. Cyril Gane's probably fighting Alexander Volkov again or something. Or maybe they do winner of Curtis Blades and Rizvan Cunha fight Cyril Gane. I don't know. But, you're kind of in this weird spot where Halton Almeida is going to fight Volkov or Cyril Gane. And Tybura already lost to Spivak at 7. Him and Derek Lewis isn't going to happen. So, Marcin Tybura versus Sergey Pavlovich. It's a great opportunity for Pavlovich to bounce back. And it's a great opportunity for, Marcin Tybura to bounce back into the top 5. So, there's stuff you can do with that. Mick Parkin will be fighting down. Tybura could fight down, could fight up. I don't know. I'm just always happy when I pick these fights correctly. Next up, probably would have been fight of the night had we, needed to have a fight of the night, but Loner Kavanagh remains undefeated at 9-0 as he beats Felipe dos Santos. Good stuff in this one, competitive. 58 strikes to 51 in favor of Loner Kavanagh. 92 total strikes to 71 in favor of Felipe dos Santos. 4 takedowns for Loner Kavanagh. 6.5 minutes of control time as he gets the unanimous decision in this one. A lot of apparent low blow calls going for Felipe dos Santos in this one, or some missed ones, I should have said. And people were calling him out for that. But Loner Kavanagh now 2-0 in the UFC. Good stuff at flyweight. Happy to see it. For Felipe dos Santos, he's now 1-3, and he's also lost his last 2. So don't really know what we're going to do with Loner Kavanagh. But I will say, or I should say Felipe dos Santos, whether he should stay in the UFC or go. But for Loner Kavanagh, I think you could give him a ranked opponent. I saw the names Bruno Silva, Tim Elliott. I saw Charles Johnson. So there's some options you can do with this kid, but I'd say we be careful. I'm not trying to throw him to the wolves right away, and I'm not saying he's not good, but thinking of Josh Van, I think Josh Van would absolutely starch this kid, just saying. But 25, I think they'll throw him into the rankings next up. I don't know who unranked he could fight at flyweight. I'm sure they could find someone, but good win for Loner Kavanagh. Pretty competitive, pretty high-paced fight. That's what you get with these flyweight boys. Then the final prelim of the night, nothing at all happened. 39 strikes to 38. Chris Padilla outstrikes Jai Herbert by 1, uses some clinch work, takes a split decision. This was so boring. So boring. Chris takes rounds 1 and 2. Jai takes round 3. I was fairly disappointed in this one. And Jai Herbert, now 1-3 in his last 4. Tough to see. As for Chris Padilla, make it 3-0 in the UFC and make it 6 straight wins overall. How about that, Chris Padilla? Happy to see you. But what I like to do is matchmake on the same card. Kyle Fernandez won a fight earlier. Got a big name in Grup Kuladze. Chris Padilla's got a little win streak. I say you match those two up on an Apex card down the line. You can even give Chris Padilla a legit, just outside the top 15 type of guy, but, he just didn't do much in this one. to really earn any approval of any regard. Not trying to diss the guy, but that's what I'll say. So prelims, kind of hit or miss for a lot of these ones. I will say Shauna Bannon was the highlight of this all. My favorite prediction, Marcin Tybura beating McParkin. With that, we got into the main card, and Nathaniel Wood and Morgan Cherie catching everyone off guard as Morgan Cherie posts up a dud, dropping this one 2-2 in the UFC. I just don't think he's as good as we thought he would be. Or maybe Nathaniel Wood's better than we thought it would be. I don't know. Nathaniel Wood, 2-fight losing streak, make him 5-1 in his last 6. This dude's heading for the rankings. Let me tell you, Nathaniel Wood has earned himself a ranked shot with a fight like this. Dominated Morgan Cherie from the opening bell, 30-27 him, dropped him in round 1, thought he knocked him out. 72 significant strikes to 42, 89 total strikes to 69, gets taken down once in round 1, and that was just about it. Nathaniel Wood, great performance for the kid, and honestly, deserved, because we need more Great Britain stars when we come over here. We got Tom Aspinall, we got Paddy Pimblett. Maybe you'll have Nathaniel Wood down the line. But you got some fun guys in the rankings. Obviously, Bryce Mitchell, Gene Silva, loser of that matchup, could take on Nathaniel Wood. Calvin Kattar, I think, is a very even matchup if you want to run that. Hell, you could even do Giga Chikadze. You could do the winner of Dan Ige, Sean Woodson, loser of Dan Ige, Sean Woodson. A lot of options for him. Now, as for our good buddy Morgan Cherie, you could keep him, you could gut him. If I'm the UFC, I'm keeping him. But I think for his next opponent, you give him like a Jonathan Pierce, a Pat Sabatini. You give him kind of not a top 15 guy, lower ranked guy. It'll be tricky to see what you do with him. But good stuff for Nathaniel Wood. Not going to hate on him at all. Missed on the prediction. It happens. I'll tell you who's not clearly legit, and that is Jordan Vucenic, as Chris Duncan makes him look silly. Chris Duncan making Jordan Vukovic like an amateur. Chris Duncan, 2 straight wins, 2 straight guillotines, make him 5-1 in the UFC, dude. He's legit. He's legit. Chris Duncan, man, I was sleeping on him. I kept thinking about how he was dominated by Manuel Torres, but nah, this dude is really freaking good. And I'm happy for him in this one. For Jordan, 2 straight losses in the UFC. That'll do it for him. Those tattoos don't help you fight, my boy. Round 1, Chris drops Jordan. Drops him with a beautiful punch. Thought he was going to submit him. Thought he was going to submit him. Round 2 gets going. Jordan is actually outstriking him. Keeps getting taken down. Eventually gives up his neck. And eventually wasn't it just a couple seconds left, if I'm not mistaken? Oh, still like a minute left. He gets submitted by Chris Duncan. So excellent win for Chris Duncan in the men's lightweight division. And honestly, he's not really ready for a ranked opponent, but Chase Hooper and Jim Miller are going at it. And I think the winner of that would be a fun opponent for this man. Honestly, I think that would be a great matchup. You can even run up a little Daniel Zaluber, Esteban Ribovics. There's a lot of fun fights out there. And Charlie Campbell, a lot of names out there for our good buddy Chris Duncan. So, Chris, I'm sorry I didn't pick you. Got to put some more respect on your name. My bad. For Jordan, like I said, I don't know what to do with him. Have him fight Jai Herbert, have him fight Guram Kuladze. There's not much to do with this guy if he's getting absolutely stunted on like he was. Now, I won't lie, he was clearly better on the feet even though he got dropped. I think he just got caught. But on the ground, for having such a good ground game, Chris Duncan just kind of made him look silly. So, tough stuff for Chris Duncan. Kind of a shame he didn't get a performance bonus. It is what it is. Following that, we went with the fun prediction of Molly McCann, and she is just ran through by Alexa Thanera. Fight lasted total of 4 minutes, 32 seconds, and there was just about a 50-second span where Molly McCann was not being held on her back. Alexa Thanera getting a round 1 rear naked chokehold. Welcome to the UFC, Alexa Thanera, as legit as most people expected. 10 straight wins for her, and she gets her 7th career submission. Good win for her. I'd also match her up with maybe Shauna Bannon on the prelims. I think that would be a good matchup. But the real story in this one, Molly McCann retires after this one. Tough loss here. Submitted again in round 1 in front of your home London crowd. I think it's finally taken its toll. She gets her little send-off. They gave her some time on the mic. But I don't know. She had a little run there in 2023, but never amounted to much. Sorry to see you, Molly McCann. But, Paddy Pimblett. He'll continue on your legacy with your training camp or your gym or whatever you want to call it. Good stuff for Alexa Thanera. She's going to be legit in the women's strawweight division. Molly McCann, way to add to her highlight reel. That's all I'm going to say right there. Following that, I don't know how he did it, but Kevin Holly gets a performance bonus for his win over Gunnar Nelson. It was very odd, but Good stuff. That's all I'm going to say. Kevin Holland dominates Gunnar Nelson. Gunnar Nelson is winning round one, basically controls him for 3 minutes round one, and then Kevin Holland drops him, just about dang near knocks him out. I mean, Daniel Movati could have stepped in and stopped it at any moment he wanted, let it go to the final bell, but Kevin Holland looking legit as ever. There's this weird moment where Kevin was wrapped up on his arm, and Gunnar Nelson is just standing there holding Kevin wrapped around his arm. It was such a weird sight. Round two, Kevin Holland gets taken down again, held down for 3 minutes, but outstrikes him 17-3. And then round three, Kevin Holland gets taken down once, and then yet again is almost on top, landing more. I mean, total strikes, 138-30. So no activity from Gunnar Nelson at all. Kevin Holland doing what he does best, getting a win here, almost got the finish multiple times. He was hunting for some submissions. I saw it. He was almost submitted at one point, which had everyone almost going crazy, but of course, he had to pop his head out. Kevin ends his little 2-fight losing streak, happy to see, and whoever he fights, I just hope he's happy, because when Kevin Holland wins, I'm happy. Good stuff for him, back in the win category, love to see it. As for Gunnar, I mean, I think he's past his prime. There's no reason to keep fighting Gunnar. You can retire, you can, come back for another. It doesn't really do anything. Now, for Kevin, I don't know what fun fights there are necessarily out there for him. Because with Kevin Holland, there's always just so many. It's always so many. But MMA Theory, one of my favorite pages on Instagram, they threw out the name of Li Jingliang, and I kind of rock with a little Li Jingliang prediction. I think it could be fun, And the Leech, he's in need of a win, so if you guys want to run that, that'd be a good one. But Kevin, he can fight anyone. I just think Kevin needs to stay away from the middleweights. Fight at welterweight, Kevin, for goodness sakes, and stop feeding him to absolute killers. Alrighty, goodness me. Kevin Holland would be the type of guy to have to fight Carlos Prates on short notice. I'm going to be honest. That's the type of guy Kevin Holland is. Good win for him. Happy to see him win. And he gets $50K performance bonus. Was it performance bonus worthy? I don't know. He gets $50K though, and I'm not mad about it. Co-main event comes up next. And I feel like I was watching almost a more close version of Volkan Ozdemir versus Carlos Ulberg, as Carlos Ulberg beats Jan Blachowicz. I mean, it was about as just a technical back-and-forth striking matchup as you could get. Nothing really else to say about that, guys. I'm going to be honest. Carlos takes the decision. I agree with the decision. I think it's a best for business decision. And his win is. Total, 75 significant strikes to 59. Same for the total. Both men shoot one takedown and fail. I mean, just came down to who landed more each round, and Jan landed 3 more in round 1. Carlos landed 13 more in round 2, and he landed 6 more in round 3. So, Carlos Ulberg, 8-fight winning streak. Good stuff. And Ulberg is now going to be ranked at number 3 in the men's light heavyweight division. I mean, the only guys above him are Jiri Prochazka and Alex Pereira. Good stuff for him. I mean, there's not much to complain about here. For Ulberg, you could do a Jiri Prochazka fight. I mean, if they're going to run back Alex Pereira and Magomed Ankalaev, or you just... Actually, I think it's probably going to be Jiri versus Carlos Ulberg. But I'm happy for Carlos Ulberg. I've been picking him every single fight that he's had to the rise, top of the division, and good stuff. I mean, did what he had to do. Just outstriking Jan Blachowicz is not an easy task. I saw some people were upset with the decision, but to be honest, Jan's 42. There's not much left for him to do. I'm going to be honest. If he stays, I mean, what are his options? Khalil Roundtree Jr., winner of Nikita Krylov and Dominic Reyes a rematch. He goes up to heavyweight and fights Cyril Gane. Like, I don't know what to do with him, honestly. Jan Blachowicz, I think he should retire. He did a great job of boosting up a guy like Carlos Ulberg. But another thing with Jan is I think he wants to end his career on a win. So maybe they give him like Osman Mirzakhanov and he picks up a win. I don't know. Great win for Ulberg. He's got a number 1 contender fight coming up next with, I can only assume, Jiri Prochazka. That's me, my guess. But if it's not Jiri, I mean, I don't know, a title shot? Like, I don't know what to do with this guy. He's fun, though. And an 8-fight winning streak is very good to have, especially in A division. So, good job, Ulberg. It's tough for Jan Blachowicz as a Jan Blachowicz fan, and picking against him. It kind of sucked, but hey, just how it works out. A lot of tough decisions for Jan Blachowicz. Can't lie. The Alex Pereira fight, Magomed Ankalaev fight, just gotta stop going to the judges' scorecards, Jan. That's all I'm gonna say for that. Main event, though, was up next, folks, and I was so freaking happy with the result. I mean, this is just the year of the changing of the guard as Sean Brady mauls Leon Edwards. And by the way, never been a fan of Leon Edwards at all, and it was just so satisfying to watch Sean Brady destroy him. 57 significant strikes to 23, 221 total strikes to 23. That's not even a joke. 5 of 7 on takedowns, 11 minutes and 10 seconds of control time. So 11 minutes of control time for Sean Brady. Just to let you guys all know, the fight lasted 16 minutes and 39 seconds. So there's just about a 5-minute interval where Sean Brady wasn't in control. Gets the round 4 guillotine choke. Happy for him. Finally getting a freaking finish, Sean. So long overdue. 3-fight winning streak now, and he's sitting at a very, very beautiful, what is this now? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 8-1 in the UFC. Wow. Good stuff for Sean Brady. And he's going to be ranked number 1 in the world. Leon Edwards was ranked number 1. Now Sean Brady is ranked number 1. And by the way, Leon was ranked number 12 in the men's pound for pound. Are we going to boot him? We got to boot him, right? You got to get him out of the rankings. You got to get him out of the pound-for-pound rankings for sure. Tail of each round, we get round 1 going, and it's back and forth. Back and forth, Leon's actually outstriking him. Sean lands a takedown at the end of round 1, and I think we can all agree he took that one with the takedown. Round 2, though, he shoots a takedown 3 seconds in, 4 minutes, 57 seconds of control time. I don't think you guys understand how tough that is. I don't think you understand how tough that is. It's almost impossible to do. Leon does not only not land a significant strike, he doesn't even throw a strike the whole fight. The whole round, I should say. 19 significant strikes to 0, 76 total strikes to 0, and it wasn't a 10-8 round. The judges were just, they were so biased, and they couldn't even scam around for Leon. That's how much of a domination this was. Round 3, Sean mauls him again, 4 minutes, 9 seconds of control time. No better in round 4. Leon doesn't land a single strike, is taken down, is put in a guillotine, and is forced to tap. Boom. First time in his career he's ever been finished, and Sean Brady gets another submission to the record. Love to see it. Absolutely love to see it. And as for Leon, tough stuff. Tough stuff for Leon. Back-to-back losses to now Bilal Muhammad and Sean Brady, and it leaves a lot more questions for his career than answers. Honestly, his corner showed no urgency. His corner hasn't showed any urgency the last any fights. It's just been abysmal. So if I'm Leon, if I want to actually keep fighting, which I believe he does, I think you got to switch up your training camp. But Sean Brady, now going to be ranked number 1. I think you got to put him past Shavkat. Honestly, I'm restructuring the rankings. Sean Brady 1. Shavkat 2, Leon at 3, Usman at 4, Jack Del Malia at 5, and then right before Jack's fight with Bilal, you bump him up to 4 or something. So, Sean, he's getting the next title shot. Gotta be, him and Nasruddin Imavov in a weird spot. Him and Nasruddin Imavov are in weird spots where you have a title fight booked. All right, you got Bilal Muhammad booked versus Jack Del Malia. You have Dricus du Plessis confirmed to be taking on Khamzat Chimaev. He's then going to have to wait in the wings for someone else to get a title shot to then actually fight. So, Sean Brady, unless you want to do a fight of him versus Shavkat, which you could do. I also saw Joaquin Buckley's name was being thrown around. I think he should just wait. He's earned a title fight. Fight the winner of Shavkat versus the winner of Bilal Muhammad and Jack Del Malia. That's what you should do. As for Leon, what do you do? Leon versus Ian Gary, Leon versus Joaquin Buckley, Leon versus Carlos Prates with a win. It's just going to get ugly from here. If you're Leon Edwards, you're just fighting killers. You're Ian Gary, Joaquin Buckley, and Carlos Prates. I'm taking all 3 of them over him any day of the week. I think your time has come. His time has come. It's time for him to lay down the gloves, accept that, hey, my time is over. Time for someone else to come in. He's getting dominated. Yeah. So, great win for Sean Brady. So happy for him. It was such a feel-good moment, and I love Sean Brady. Now, Sean Brady, one of my favorite fighters. I can confirm it. Take it to the bank. One of my favorite fighters. UFC London, not too bad of a card. It's going to go up there in the good category when we talk about cards for the whole year. But we look ahead to next week, and we actually are in Mexico. Now, is it a good card? No, it's actually a very bad card, if I'm being honest. Brandon Moreno, Steve Erceg is the main event. Manuel Torres, Drew Dober, co-main event. You do have Joe Pyfer, Raul Rosas Jr. is on here. That's it. Raul Rosas Jr. and Joe Pyfer are the big names on here. And honestly, this would be a fight where you have Brandon Moreno beat Amir Albazi and then he'd lose to Steve Erceg. That's the type of fight this would be. I hope not. But those are UFC London recap and thoughts on every fight. And yeah, we'll be back with our UFC Mexico predictions later in the week. But as for now, let's get into March Madness and recap every single... we're not going to go through every single game, but we're just going to talk about where the standings are currently as we head into the Sweet 16 this upcoming weekend. So like every year, we kick things off with the first 4 games in March Madness. I believe they're called the first 4 games. And you had Alabama State beating St. Francis U, Xavier beating Texas. That Xavier-Texas game was super good. Mount St. Mary's beating American, and North Carolina beating San Diego State. Xavier versus Texas was probably my favorite one, but I do believe Alabama State had a buzzer beater. I didn't catch that one, but unlike any... Most years you have at least one of the final or the first 4 teams winning. Usually it's those either 12 or 11 seeds. This year, our 11 seeds both dropping L's. UNC and Xavier both lost, unfortunately. UNC really hurting. So we'll start from the top of the bracket and work our way all the way to the bottom. So kicking things off, Alabama State, they won only to be blown out by number 1 seeded Auburn by 20 points. Their opponent, Creighton, the number 9 seed, was able to beat Louisville 89-75. And the one thing about that Creighton team is they have this 24-year-old who is apparently as a kid, he's like a 5th year or something. I don't know. I found that super funny. But it was good for Creighton to move on only to lose in the round of 32 to Auburn 82-70. So to everyone's dismay, a 1 seed in Auburn makes it to the Sweet 16. But honestly, that Creighton game was pretty close. I believe Creighton was even up like 2 points at halftime. So Auburn, they've earned their spot. If you had Auburn advancing, that was pretty easy. Pretty easy. For me, I had fluctuated between Creighton or Auburn make it to the Sweet 16. I think I might have had Louisville early on, but I was really sold on Creighton. Unfortunate that that's how that ends. But Auburn will be taking on Michigan. Michigan was able to get past UC San Diego 68-65 in such a close game. That was a really good one. They played Texas A&M, who beat Yale 80-71. Man, really thought Yale had it. Yale was playing such good basketball the whole game, then fell behind 10 and just could not get around the hump. Could not get around the hump of that little 10-point backdrop. Michigan then manhandles Texas A&M 91-79, but it was pretty close the majority of the way. You get into those final 8 minutes, and they kind of pulled away. So number 1 Auburn, number 5 Michigan, they'll be meeting in the Sweet 16. Going to hold off on any Sweet 16 talk because we're going to probably be doing our predictions later on in the week when we do some of our other episodes, such as UFC Mexico, as I mentioned. So we'll hold off on that, but as for that little upper 8-team bracket up at the top, not really too surprised with anything. You know, you're 1-9, 5-4 advance, and then you're 1-5 in the Sweet 16. No upsets there. Moving into the bottom half of the south part of our bracket, Ole Miss beating UNC 71-64. Super close the whole game. Really sucked. I had UNC being almost like a UCLA 2021 type of run, make it all the way to the Elite 8 Final Four. Unfortunately, Ole Miss spoils that 71-64. Their opponents in the round of 32 were Iowa State, who got past Lipscomb 82-55. Wasn't even close. Honestly, wasn't even a competition. We then get into the round of 32 today. Ole Miss, I'm recording this on Sunday night. Ole Miss beats Iowa State 91-78. Oh my goodness, the 6th seed Ole Miss, the Rebels, they're in the Sweet 16. I don't know if anyone had that. I don't know if any of my boys had that. I was not giving them a chance at that. If they got past North Carolina, I was having them lose to Iowa State. That's shocking to me. So Ole Miss, they're in the Sweet 16. Did not see that coming, but I'm going to be honest, not too surprised that Lipscomb lost. A little shocked that UNC lost. They'll be playing Michigan State. Michigan State manhandles Bryan 87-62 and then gets past the New Mexico Lobos. That's right. The Lobos, the number 10 seed, beat Marquette at 7. Somewhat predictable. You know, I kind of think everyone had kind of New Mexico advancing. Wasn't too big of a shocker. But New Mexico played Michigan State close the entire game. That 8 points is kind of what happens when you get into the, you missed the 3, they hit 2 free throws. You go back down, you missed 3, they hit 2 free throws. That game was super close the entire way. But number 2 seed Michigan State, they will be taking on Ole Miss. So in the South Division, you get a 1, 2, 5, and 6. No real shockers there. I mean, I wouldn't even call Iowa State missing it. Ole Miss, too big of an upset. Good stuff for Ole Miss. I don't really know too much about their players or anything like that. If I can look, they have someone named M. Dia. He dropped 18 points. Espadula dropped 20. Merle dropped 15. And you had someone named Brakefield. They only list last names on March Madness Live. Interesting, but Ole Miss, Michigan State should be a pretty good matchup. I was thinking more you were going to get Michigan State, Iowa State, or Michigan State, UNC. It is what it is, but honestly, Michigan State, Michigan in the Elite 8, it's right there for the picking. I think there's a pretty good chance of it happening. I think the real option here is, can Michigan get past Auburn? We'll have to see about that later in the week. Getting into the other half of whoever will be playing this team in the Final Four, and that is we are in the west part of our bracket, or the bottom left, depending how you view it. Florida blows out Norfolk State 95-69. No 16 seed this year offering any form of a challenge, and every 16 seed game just proceedingly got worse and worse and worse. But Florida manhandles them. They played UConn, who got past Oklahoma 67-59. Dan Hurley leading his team there. There was some confidence. Then Florida, UConn, one of the better games of the tournament. So competitive. Came down in the final few seconds, and UConn just absolutely fumbled their shot. They're complaining about the reffing. Look, you have a chance to hit a game winner, and your point guard is literally just bobbling the ball, and it goes off his leg, and he gets turned over. Can't knock him there. Dan Hurley throws a little tantrum leaving. Honestly, makes me glad UConn was not advancing, but they had the best opportunity to upset a 1 seed. They don't do it. Florida is in the Sweet 16, to no one's surprise. I believe they're the number 2 favorite behind Duke to win March Madness, but hey, they got past UConn. They can probably get past anyone at this point. Their opponents are the Terrapins from Maryland. Maryland blew out GCU Grand Canyon 81-49. No competition there. And they played the upset Colorado State. Colorado State beats Memphis 78-70. One of my favorite calls of this March Madness. I knew Colorado State was going to make it, and I knew Maryland was actually going to make it to the Sweet 16. So Maryland and Florida, somewhat predictable, 1-4, the 2 high seeds in there, but pretty good. That Maryland-Colorado State game, I believe it should be number 1 up there. You have a buzzer beater, and it's Derek Queen, who's a top 10 draft pick, I think, right now, hitting the buzzer beater on Colorado State. A fantastic game. Maryland, Florida is going to do numbers. But honestly, I don't know, Michael. I don't know. I'm thinking about maybe picking Maryland in that. Should be a pretty good one, but that whole bracket up there, it was pretty predictable. Pretty predictable for me. We get into the lower half of the West. Drake beats Missouri 67-57. Wow. Didn't really see that coming. I mean, I should have that 11 over the 6. There's always an 11 over a 6 in every bracket. I was looking at completely different ones across every single field. Was kind of overlooking Drake. Can't even lie, but Drake gets past Missouri only to lose to Texas Tech. That's right. Texas Tech beats UNC Wilmington. But by the way, the 14th seed UNC Wilmington, they played hard. They played hard against Texas Tech. They lost by 10, but they would not go down without a fight. However, Texas Tech was able to get past Drake pretty handsomely, 77-64. There wasn't much of a challenge. Wasn't much of a challenge there for Texas Tech. Good stuff for them. The 3 seed advances to the Sweet 16, to no one's surprise. Now, as for that bottom bracket, so many storylines right there. First off, St. John's pulls out Omaha 83-53. Good work. But Arkansas getting past Kansas 79-72, straight up cinema. Absolutely amazing. Rivals right there. And the fact that Arkansas beat them last year and they beat them again this year. Oh, it must sting for the Jayhawks. It must sting so bad. Glad I'm not a Jayhawks fan. Gotta be honest. I actually had a professor my freshman year, I want to say sophomore year, and he was actually it was my sophomore year, I'm pretty sure, and he actually went to Kansas, so he was a Jayhawks fan, pretty cool guy, but Arkansas wins there, good job to John Calipari, and then Arkansas St. John's. Now Arkansas wins 75-66, this was back and forth the whole game, okay, this was such a barn burner, and when it came down to crunch time, St. John's just couldn't finish. Honestly, and their star player, I think, shot 3 for 17. He got benched in the final minutes. Rick Pitino's team not making it to the Sweet 16. Arkansas, the 10 seed, makes it to the Sweet 16. And fun fact, guys, a 10 seed is the lowest seed currently in the Sweet 16. That is right. And you want to know the next closest seed? A 6 seed. That is right. There are no Cinderella teams this playoffs. We're going to talk about some potential Cinderella teams in a second, but As for this, Arkansas isn't really a Cinderella team, going to be honest. Them and Texas Tech is going to be 50-50, but it's weird to look at that. Arkansas, Texas Tech, Maryland, can any of those teams take down Florida? I don't know, but when I think of Michigan State, Ole Miss, and Michigan, I feel like they can take down Auburn, so good games all around. Arkansas currently the biggest upset team of the tournament. Moving up to the east, the upper right part of our bracket, you had Duke taking on Mount St. Mary's 93-49, literally the most dominant performance of the entire tournament so far. They took on Baylor in the second round, who beat Mississippi State 9 over an 8 seed, 75-72 in a very close game. Duke and Baylor was close for the early part of the game, and then Duke pulled away at 17 at the half and led by 20 literally the entire game and ended up winning by 23. Yeah, Cooper Flagg, what did he drop? He was balling last time I looked at the score. Cooper Flagg, 18 points, 5 for 11 shooting, also had 9 rebounds, 6 assists. I mean, amazing. Tyrese Proctor goes off for 25. Knuppel drops 2 threes for 12 points. Yeah, Duke's a 1 seed for a reason, but no competition. They'll be playing Arizona in the Sweet 16. Somewhat predictable, but also could have been Oregon. Oregon beat Liberty 81-52. Not even close. Arizona beats Akron 93-65. Not even close, but Arizona and Oregon. What a game. Let me tell you, from the get-go, just back and forth as even as it gets. Phenomenal work from both these teams. Such a shame that they had to play in the round of 32, because these two could have put on a great performance in the Sweet 16 or even the Elite 8. For Oregon, they had Shellstad, their guard, 25 points, Bamba, 17, Biddle, 16. As for Arizona, I mean, Caleb Love drops a 29 piece. What are you going to do? 29 points, 9 rebounds. What are you going to do? Stud player. He's the best on the team. Caleb Love, take it on Duke. It don't get much better than that. Absolutely love it. They'll be in the Sweet 16, Duke, Arizona. And as I look at the teams that could be playing Duke, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, Arizona's probably going to be one of the better options to beat them. But at this point, I don't know. Moving on down to the other half of the Western, or that's the East, actually. BYU gets past VCU 6-11, 80-71. VCU had it somewhat close, but honestly, BYU just was in their bag. They knew what they were doing. They played Wisconsin, who blew out Montana 85-66 in the round of 32, and BYU wins 6-3, 91-89. What a shocker. I'm sure not a lot of people had BYU make it to their Sweet 16, all behind R. Sanders, their starring guard, 25 points. Amazing stuff for him. Absolute doozy as Jay Tonje, 37 points for Wisconsin, puts up just an atrocious game winner. It was what didn't even hit the rim. It was pretty bad, but he'll be great whether he chooses to stay or whether he chooses to go to the draft. He's an amazing player. But BYU, they're in the Sweet 16, a shocking result. BYU and Ole Miss, the 6 seeds, making it to the Sweet 16. Who'd have thought? Who'd have thought? Not me. I mean, I don't know how good of a chance I give BYU to make the Elite 8, but nonetheless, made the Sweet 16, made it past the first weekend. Huge win over Wisconsin. Good work. They'll be playing Alabama in the Sweet 16. Alabama got past Robert Morris 90-81. Robert Morris was looking like a potential Cinderella team, but man, Crimson Tide, they just got too many star players. Mark Sears, 22 points. Omoroji, 17. So good. Diabate off the bench, 18. I mean, Grant Nelson, 5 points. Always love watching Grant Nelson play. He's fun, but got past them. St. Mary's beat Vanderbilt 59-56 in round 1, a little 7-10, and then Alabama handled them 80-66. St. Mary's had it somewhat close, and Alabama just pulled away. So Alabama, BYU honestly feels like a gimme for Alabama and Duke. It was a favorite matchup circle on everyone's thing. I know when everyone's looking at the 1 and 2 matchups, it's kind of like, okay, Houston and Tennessee, that's probably realistic. Florida versus St. John's, I could see that. Auburn and Michigan State, it's a gimme, but Duke and Alabama was probably everyone's favorite, and at this point, it seems like we're going to get it. But in that lower bracket, I mean, no real upsets. No real upsets, and even that entire, honestly, the entire East, we had the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then just it was the 9 beating the 8. 9s over 8s are never really upsets in my mind, so it's just how it is. So it'll be interesting. Alabama, BYU, Duke, Arizona. I don't know. We'll have to wait around for our predictions. And then we get into the final bottom half of the bracket, the Midwest, the bottom right of the bracket. Houston blows out SIU Edwardsville 78-40. Oh, what a tough team to play, that Houston team in round 1. In round of 32, Gonzaga took them on. Gonzaga got past Georgia with ease, 89-68. Georgia did not look like they belonged in the tournament. And Gonzaga played Houston so close, 81-76. It took everything in Houston to get past Gonzaga. Gonzaga came to play. LJ Cryer, 30 bomb to send them to the Sweet 16. Absolutely love it. Absolutely love it. These 1 seeds, man, they are good this year. They got some star players. And Gonzaga, you know, I think if you'd have had Gonzaga as a 5 seed, they'd have beaten McNeese, they'd have beaten Purdue, they'd have been playing Houston, but instead, honestly, I think a lot of people surprised, but Purdue is in the Sweet 16 as a 4 seed. A 4 seed is kind of a shocker to everyone. Now, we all know from the past few years, Purdue's been an absolute unit of a team, but this year, taking on High Point, who's kind of a lot of people's favorite to be a Cinderella team, beat them by 12. They then take on McNeese, the 12 over the 5, who upset Clemson 69-67. And just, you're watching McNeese play, and they felt like a Cinderella team. They had the star player who was at the Aura, Amir Khan, their team managers, bringing out the beatbox for every game. They felt like a Cinderella team. They had the look of a Cinderella team, and Purdue beat them by 14. They got on the court, and you could just tell Purdue has been playing at that level all year. And McNeese, don't get me wrong, great team. They just weren't playing the same level of guys that Purdue have been playing all year. So Purdue gets past High Point, gets past McNeese, kills 2 fun Cinderella teams, and they'll take on Houston. Honestly, I give Purdue a great chance to beat Houston. Houston is not inevitable. Don't look at that 38-point win over SIU Edwardsville. That's not a telling of how this team is. Look at the number 8 seed Gonzaga, how close they played them. So Purdue, I give them a great shot to make it to the Elite 8, and if they do, I think a lot of people will be pretty shocked. Other last teams that made it to the Sweet 16. First up, Illinois beating Xavier 86-73 was such a killer. Such a killer. I was like, I watched UNC lose to Ole Miss, and I'm like, okay, Xavier's got to get past Illinois. They didn't. Now, I didn't think they would, but I was kind of hoping they did. Illinois advances to the round of 32. They played Kentucky, who blew out Troy 76-57. I mean, no fun there. And then Kentucky gets past Illinois 84-75. Pretty close game the entire way, but I mean, the Wildcats, they play good basketball. What more could you ask for? Nothing too much. Brea, 23 points. Awea, 15 points. You also had A. Williams, 8 points, 10 rebounds, 6 assists. Good stuff from them. Kentucky and the Wildcats, good work. They will be taking on Tennessee. 2-3, and I mean, no fun there. UCLA blows out Utah State 72-47. I think that left a lot of people shocked. I mean, UCLA just started the game hot and never cooled off. And then when they get into facing Tennessee, who, by the way, beat Wofford 77-62. Wofford had it close in the first half, and then second half came around, and they just had nothing left. Tennessee wins by 9 over UCLA. No shocker there. Just kind of, yeah. 2-3. So not a single 1 through 4 seed loses in the round of 32. Not the round of 32, first round. Not a single 1 through 4 seed lost until the round of 32, which is pretty insane. You had a couple 5 over 12 or 12 over 5s, a couple 11 over 6s. Actually, I think you only had one 11 over 6. What do we have? 2 12 over 5s? Actually, we had 2 12 over 5 seeds. Other than that, I guess we had a 10 seed, 9 seed, 10 seed, 9 seed. Yeah, not a whole lot of upsets, guys. Just a lot of really good teams and no real Cinderella teams. As I look at the 16 teams, okay, Kentucky, Tennessee, no Cinderella, no shocker. Whoever makes it to the Elite 8 and whoever could potentially make it to the Final Four, no shocker. That whole Houston, Purdue, Kentucky, Tennessee, that's your 1, 2, 3, 4 team. Whoever represents them in the Final Four, not surprised. Florida, Maryland, Texas Tech, Arkansas. I'm going to be honest. This is where you might see some upsets. Arkansas could get past Texas Tech. Maryland could get past Florida. And then let's say it's Maryland, Texas Tech, Maryland, Arkansas. I think anyone who's not Florida coming out of there will be a shocker. All right, which I would love to see. That's March Madness. I'm rooting for the Terrapins, and then I'm rooting for probably Arkansas at this point to make a run just because they're the 10 seed, but I think you could see some shockers there. Upper left part of the bracket, the South, Auburn and Michigan. I think if it's Ole Miss or Michigan, it'll be an upset. But if it's Auburn or Michigan State, that would be expected. I think especially if Michigan State gets past Auburn, that would be a shocker. Not making any predictions right now, just kind of observing. And then if it's BYU, Alabama, or Arizona, if it's anyone but Duke, that's going to be an upset. I'm kidding you. Bama over Duke is going to be an upset. After watching Alabama play against Robert Morris and St. Mary's, they're a beatable team. I'll tell you right now. Now, do I think BYU is going to do it? No, but I don't know. This week off will really prove pivotal for especially, I think, the lower level teams. Especially when I'm talking about lower level, I'm talking about 5 and 4 seeds at this point, 6 seeds. But it was pretty good. Pretty good. A lot of interesting things. I'll say there were a lot of blowouts, but I'm willing to look past that for the greater good of basketball. So round 1 and 2 of March Madness are complete. We have the entire field of Sweet 16 complete and ready to be watched. Also, we have the Frozen Four coming up. That's right, the 16 teams who will be playing in the hockey basically March Madness, if you want to call it that, including my college, Minnesota State. Mankato, absolutely love that. So I'm probably going to print out a couple brackets for my friends. Might go over mine here on the podcast just to do it for fun, but as for this episode, that's all we got, fellas. A lot of fun stuff. Invincible, Severance, UFC London, and March Madness. It was a fantastic weekend, even last few days, as I've been watching shows. So, without ado, folks, you guys have an amazing week. You guys kick some butt. And as always, I'll catch you next time on the Surprise Jab Podcast.